History is not random. The movements of kings and empires, the rise and fall of nations, the clash of armies, and the signing of decrees, none of it is random. The world sees chaos. The rulers of the earth believe they are the masters of destiny. Philosophers claim history is the product of human will, of accident, of chance. But behind the noise, behind the confusion and the pride of men, there moves a silent hand. There exists a purpose, a design, a mystery, a secret too ancient for the wise of this age to comprehend. From the beginning of the ages, from the time the Spirit of God hovered over the deep, there has been a will, a purpose that shapes all things. The secret that shaped world history did not arise from the palaces of kings or the halls of governments. It did not spring from human intellect or the strength of mighty armies. It began in the mind of the Eternal and was spoken into existence by the voice of the Almighty. It is the reason why one nation is exalted and another brought down, why an empire flourishes in one moment and crumbles into dust the next. It is why the smallest of peoples can rise to heights beyond their number and strength, and why the greatest powers can be reduced to ruins. Men strive, they plot, they build their towers into the heavens, but unless they move in accordance with the secret, all their works will come to nothing. From the beginning, there was a covenant made, a covenant that would weave itself into the fabric of human history, a covenant given to a man who had no nation, no power, no army, a man who wandered the earth with nothing but a promise from God. That man was Abram, later called Abraham, the father of many nations. When God made covenant with Abraham, he wasn't just blessing a man. He was setting in motion a destiny that would alter the course of the entire world. The blessings and judgments, the rise and collapse of kingdoms would be bound to this covenant. History would revolve around the descendants of Abraham, the people of the promise, and ultimately around the seed through whom all nations would be blessed. The world does not see it. The scholars write their histories and attribute the events to economics, to politics, to personalities. But behind it all, the mystery moves. Pharaoh hardened his heart, and Egypt was struck down. Babylon lifted itself in pride, and Babylon fell. Assyria boasted against the people of God, and Assyria was broken. Rome crucified the Son of the Covenant, and Rome would see its dominion crumble into dust. And even now, the movements of the earth are not disconnected from the ancient covenant. When nations align themselves with the purposes of God, they rise. When they war against his covenant, they fall. The secret remains active, pulsing like an invisible river beneath the surface of history. It is written that the Most High sets up kings and removes them. No crown rests upon any head unless the purposes of God allow it. No nation stands unless the secret allows it to stand. The power of men is but a vapor before the breath of the Almighty. The greatest armies of the earth are as a drop in the bucket compared to the weight of his purposes. Men can fight against it, but they will only find themselves fighting against the wind, against the unseen force that no sword can pierce and no wall can withstand. It is the divine current that moves all things toward their appointed end. And so history is not random. The events that shape the world are not accidents of fate. They are the outworking of an ancient plan. The pattern is there for all to see, but only those with eyes of the Spirit will recognize it. Only those who know the covenant will understand the movement of the times. For every revolution, every conquest, every fall, every coronation, all of it, knowingly or unknowingly, is bound to the ancient secret that still governs the destinies of nations and men. And the days that are coming will make this even clearer, for the secret that shaped the past will shape the future, and every soul will be brought to a crossroads between the ancient path and the path of rebellion. The covenant between God and man is not a casual agreement, not a treaty written on fragile paper, not a contract of convenience. It is a bond sealed in the highest realms, a binding of destinies, a sacred joining that alters the course of existence. From the moment God spoke his covenant to Abraham, the axis of the world shifted. It was not just a personal promise, it was a cosmic act. Through this covenant, entire nations would be raised up or cast down, kings enthroned or dethroned, civilizations born or destroyed. It is this covenant that acts as the unseen spine of human history, holding it together, directing its course, determining its rise and its collapse. When God covenanted with Abraham, he declared that through his seed all the families of the earth would be blessed. But he also declared that those who blessed Abraham's descendants would be blessed, and those who cursed them would be cursed. This was no small matter. The destiny of every people and every land became intertwined with how they positioned themselves concerning the covenant. Egypt, once the mightiest empire, lifted its hand. against the covenant people, and was struck down with plagues and judgments. Babylon exalted itself and defiled the sacred vessels of the covenant, and its kingdom was measured, found wanting, and given to another. Persia, though powerful, was used for a time to restore the covenant people, and thus it prospered until it turned against the purposes of God. Greece rose in splendor but fell into division when it touched the covenant. Rome built an empire that stretched to the ends of the known world, yet it sealed its doom the moment it raised its hand against the covenant bearer upon a wooden cross. Every covenant has terms, and those terms are unbreakable. Those who walk in the covenant's blessings inherit the promises. Those who walk in defiance inherit the curses. It is a spiritual law more certain than gravity, more inevitable than the turning of the earth. It is written into the fabric of reality itself. A nation may think itself powerful, self-sufficient, unshakable, but if it wars against the covenant, its power will crumble like ash in the wind. It may build towers to the heavens, forge weapons of destruction, claim dominion over the earth, but it will not escape the consequences of touching the sacred bond between God and man. The covenant is not limited to Israel alone, for the blessing was meant to reach all nations. It would extend through the Messiah, that from Israel the light would go forth to the ends of the earth. Thus the new covenant came into being, sealed not with the blood of bulls and goats, but with the blood of the Son of the living God. And now the stakes are even greater. To receive the covenant is to receive life everlasting. To reject it is to be cut off from the source of life itself. Nations that once upheld the covenantal light were exalted. Empires like Britain at the height of its missionary fervor, or America in its founding consecration. But when they turned away, the lampstand began to flicker. And when the lampstand flickers, the fall is not far behind. Even now, the ancient principle is at work. The movements of modern powers, the unrest of continents, the shaking of economies and governments, all of it can be traced back to this timeless covenant. Blessings are withdrawn where the covenant is scorned. Peace is removed where the covenant is broken. Prosperity dries up where the ways of God are abandoned. What was once flourishing becomes barren, and what was once mighty becomes a byword among the nations. It is not because God delights in judgment, but because the covenant is not a game to be played. It is a sacred reality to be honored. The destiny of every land is measured against this ancient standard. The rise and fall of empires are not determined by the cleverness of rulers or the might of armies, but by the unseen measure of the covenant. Those who honor it are lifted up. Those who despise it are cast down. It is not the strong who inherit the earth, but the faithful. It is not the proud who endure, but the humble who walk in the fear of God. And the ancient covenant calls out even now to every people, every king, every nation, a voice from eternity, a call to return, a call to align with the purpose that shaped the ages and that will yet shape the age to come. Those who align with the ancient covenant rise, and those who break it fall. It is an immutable law, not born of the earth but of the heavens. It governs kings and kingdoms. It commands the fates of empires. It shapes the very flow of human history. Man can attempt to resist it, to stand against the tide, but it is as futile as trying to hold back the ocean with bare hands. From the moment God established his covenant with Abraham, from the instant the words were spoken into existence, a dividing line was drawn through the earth. Those on one side would be lifted, those on the other would be cast down. The rise of ancient Israel was no accident. A nation birthed out of the covenant, delivered from the chains of Egypt by the hand of God himself, formed and shaped according to divine instruction. It was not their might that brought them victory, but the covenant. It was not their numbers that made them great, but the hand of the Almighty that lifted them. When they walked according to the covenant, they were invincible. Walls crumbled before them. Armies fled at their presence. The sun stood still in the sky. But when they turned away, when they broke the covenant, when they sought after other gods and trusted in the strength of men, their power evaporated, their cities fell, and they were scattered among the nations. It is a pattern that repeats itself again and again through history. Every nation that aligned itself with the covenant found favor beyond understanding, and every nation that broke with it saw ruin. Egypt once ruled the world, but it raised its hand against the covenant people and was brought. It is a pattern that repeats itself again and again through history. Every nation that aligned itself with the covenant found favor beyond understanding, and every nation that broke with it saw ruin. Egypt once ruled the world, but it raised its hand against the covenant people and was brought low. Babylon rose in splendor, touching the heavens with its towers, but it defied the covenant, and in one night its kingdom was weighed in the balance and found wanting. Greece, though filled with wisdom and knowledge, crumbled into fragments after it exalted itself above the purposes of God. Rome, mighty Rome, thought itself eternal, but it persecuted the heirs of the covenant, and its empire turned to dust. In more recent times, the pattern holds true. The nations that opened their doors to the covenant, that blessed the people of God, that upheld the ways of righteousness were lifted high. Those that turned against the covenant, that persecuted the righteous, that sought to erase the witness of God from their midst were brought down. Spain once held the riches of the world, but it drove out the covenant people and its empire collapsed. Nazi Germany rose with terrifying speed, fueled by hatred of the covenant, but it was crushed in ruin and shame. Soviet Russia sought to uproot the ways of God from its soil to create a new world without the covenant, but its empire was shattered, its walls fell, and its power dissolved like mist. America itself rose to unprecedented heights because it was founded, however imperfectly, on the principles of the covenant. Its earliest founders dedicated the land to the purposes of God, to be a light to the nations, and as long as it honored that dedication, it thrived, it prospered, it led. But now, as it turns away, as it casts aside the ways of the covenant, the warning signs appear. Its foundations are shaken, its unity frays, its blessings wane. For no nation can break the covenant and escape the consequences. It is not a matter of politics, not a matter of economics, but a matter of spiritual reality. The covenant is the axis on which the destinies of nations turn. The scriptures declare that righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. Righteousness, not as man defines it, but as God defines it. Righteousness that aligns with his covenant, that honors his ways, that blesses what he has blessed and fears to touch what he has called sacred. The nations that rise are not those that boast of their strength, but those that humble themselves before the God of the covenant. And the nations that fall are not necessarily the weak, but the proud, the rebellious, those who harden their hearts against the word of the Almighty. There is no neutral ground. Every people, every government, every ruler stands either in alignment with the covenant or in rebellion against it. The fate of nations is not sealed in the strategies of war rooms or the halls of parliament, but in the unseen realm, in the stance they take concerning the ancient bond between God and man. The rise and fall of empires, the movements of history, the shaking of the earth, all of it flows from this one unchanging truth. Those who bless the covenant are blessed, those who defy it are overthrown, and the destiny of the world itself is shaped by the decisions of men in light of the ancient and everlasting covenant. The end of the age will reveal the fullness of the ancient secret. All that has been hidden will be brought into the light. All that has been whispered in secret will be shouted from the rooftops. The mystery that shaped the rise and fall of kings, the movements of armies, the coronations and the collapses of nations will be laid bare. Every event of history, every rise of power, and every descent into ruin will be seen for what it truly was. The outworking of a plan greater than kings, greater than empires, greater than time itself. It was spoken before the foundation of the world, a mystery concealed for the ages, but destined to be unveiled at the appointed hour. The scriptures speak of a scroll sealed with 7 seals, a mystery waiting to be opened. The end of the age is the opening of that scroll. It is the revealing of that which was hidden. It is the moment when the ancient covenant and all its ramifications come into full view. The secret that moved invisibly through history will be no longer invisible. The veil will be lifted. The powers of the earth will tremble, for the shaking will not be partial, it will be complete. The kingdoms of this world will be confronted with the reality they ignored, denied, or warred against. The covenant they treated as myth will be revealed as the very axis on which their destinies turned. In that day, the true meaning of blessing and curse will be manifest. Those who align their lives with the ways of the covenant will find themselves standing on unshakable ground. Those who set themselves against it will find their foundations collapsing beneath their feet. The things that once appeared mighty will be seen as dust and vapor. The achievements of human pride, the towers built in defiance of heaven, will crumble in an instant. The armies that once marched in arrogance will melt away. The wealth amassed by unrighteousness will vanish like smoke in the wind. Only that which was built on the covenant will endure. It will be the day when the true king is revealed, the one who is himself the fulfillment of the covenant, the Alpha and the Omega, the root and the offspring of David, the bright and morning star. His appearing will be the uncovering of the mystery, the revealing of the purpose that shaped the ages. Every knee will bow and every tongue will confess, willingly or unwillingly, for the truth will no longer be hidden. The lines that were blurred will be made clear. The division between the righteous and the wicked, between the children of the covenant and the children of rebellion, will be absolute and undeniable. In that day, the ancient promises given to Abraham will find their ultimate fulfillment. The blessing that was to come upon all nations will culminate in the kingdom of God established on the earth. Israel, the nation born of the covenant, will be restored and exalted among the nations, not by human power, but by the word of the Lord. And those from every tribe, tongue, and nation who entered into the covenant through the blood of the Messiah will reign with him. The mystery of the one new man, Jew and Gentile united in the covenant of Messiah, will stand revealed in its full glory. But the day of revealing is also a day of reckoning. Those who rejected the covenant, who spurned the offer of mercy, who persecuted the people of the covenant, who lived in defiance of the ways of God, their deeds will be exposed and judgment will be rendered. It will be the day when every secret thing is brought into the light, whether good or evil. The ancient principle that governed the rise and fall of nations will govern the final judgment of souls. Those who clung to their pride, their idols, their rebellion will face the consequence of their choice. Those who humbled themselves before the covenant, who repented and turned, will inherit a kingdom that cannot be shaken. The fullness of the secret is this, that history was never truly about the ambitions of kings, the plots of rulers, the battles of armies, or the empires of men. It was always about a covenant between God and his creation. It was always about a love so fierce, so relentless, that he would move heaven and earth to fulfill it. It was always about the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world, about the redemption of a fallen race, about the restoration of all things under the rightful king. And at the end of the age, when the last trumpet sounds, when the heavens are rolled back like a scroll, all flesh will see it together, and the secret that shaped world history will be known by all. If the secret shaped the rise and fall of nations, if it determined the fate of kings and kingdoms, then it also shapes the life of every man and woman. For the mystery that moved the empires of the world moves as well through the course of every life. The same covenant that determined the rise of Israel, the fall of Babylon, the scattering of Rome, moves within the breath of every soul. You are born into a story far greater than yourself, a story ancient as the heavens and unfolding even now across the span of time. You live not in a random existence, but in a sacred and weighty reality where every choice carries eternal consequence, where every step is intertwined with the purpose of God. Just as nations are judged by their alignment to the covenant, so too are individuals. The same ancient law holds true. Those who align their lives with the purposes of God will be blessed beyond what the world can understand. Those who walk in rebellion, who war against the ways of the covenant, will see their lives crumble like empires built on sand. The lives of men are miniature reflections of the empires of history. Some rise in blessing because they walk humbly before the Almighty. Some fall into ruin because they exalt themselves, trust in their own strength, and defy the hand that formed them. Every life is a battle between two destinies, between blessing and curse, between life and death, between the ways of God and the ways of rebellion. You were not created to drift without purpose. You were not formed to be a casualty of the darkness. You were made to be a bearer of the covenant, a vessel of divine purpose, a living temple of the Spirit of the Most High. The very same calling that was given to Israel, the call to be a light to the nations, echoes over your life. Of the same calling that beckoned Abraham from the land of idols, calls you to leave behind the ways of the world and journey toward a higher promise. The covenant calls you out of the kingdoms of man to become part of a kingdom that cannot fall. It calls you to step out of the fading empires of this world and into the eternal purposes of the Ancient of Days. It calls you to turn from the idols of your culture, from the pride of life, from the rebellion that darkens the hearts of men. It calls you to align your steps, your choices, your heart with the eternal word that formed the stars. The blessings spoken over Abraham were not merely for him, but for all who would follow in the steps of faith. You are invited into the same stream of blessing, the same river of purpose, the same destiny that shaped the ages. But the call demands a response. No one enters the covenant by accident. No one fulfills destiny by drifting. You must choose. As it was written long ago, I have set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Therefore choose life, that you and your descendants may live. The choice has always been there, from the garden to the wilderness, from the mountains of Israel to the streets of the last days. The world offers its kingdoms, its treasures, its fleeting glories. But the covenant offers something greater, a kingdom that has no end, a treasure that cannot fade, a glory that death itself cannot touch. Calls in the covenant. This is in the words of Genesis. To walk in the ways of righteousness, to love what is pure, to do justice, to love mercy, to walk humbly with your God. It is to live not for yourself, but for the one who gave you life. It is to bless what he blesses and to shun what he calls evil. It is to stand when the world bows, to speak when the world is silent, to shine when the world grows dark. It is to carry the secret within you, to be a living testimony that the purposes of God are alive and moving through history still. There is no greater calling than to be a vessel of the covenant. There is no greater honor than to carry the mystery that shaped the rise and fall of empires. You may be one life among billions, but in the economy of God, one life aligned with his purposes is more powerful than the mightiest kingdom of man. One life surrendered to the covenant can move mountains, can change generations, can shake nations. In the same secret that lifted up shepherds to throne rooms, that brought down the mighty from their seats, that rewrote the destiny of the world, can rewrite your life even now. The secret that shaped world history is not finished. It is alive. It moves still. It calls out to you even now, whispering across the winds of time, beckoning you to rise, to take your place, to walk the ancient paths, to live not for a fading world, but for the purposes that will stand when all the empires of men have turned to dust. The secret that shaped world history is not a relic of the past, not a mystery to be studied and left behind, but a living force that moves still, that breathes still, that shapes the very moments of our lives. It is not confined to the pages of ancient texts or the ruins of fallen empires. It is alive and active, working in the world even now, directing the rise and fall of nations, the shaking of powers, the destiny of peoples. The same hand that wrote the covenant with fire on the mountain, that parted the sea, that brought down the walls of Jericho, is moving even now in the affairs of kings and kingdoms, in the lives of those who will hear and respond. There is a shaking that comes upon the world. It is not random. It is not chaos. It is the working of the ancient secret. For the covenant demands reckoning. It calls for nations to return. It summons civilizations to remember their maker. When they forget, when they rebel, when they lift themselves up in pride, the shaking comes. It comes to strip away illusions, to tear down idols, to bring to light what was hidden in darkness. It comes to call the wayward back to the ancient paths. It comes to separate that which is fading from that which is eternal. Every shaking is a mercy, a chance to return, a chance to turn from the edge of judgment to the fountain of mercy. The secret that shaped world history is also the secret that offers redemption. The covenant was not given to destroy, but to save. It was not given to condemn, but to bless. But blessings cannot come without alignment, without repentance, without turning. A nation that once knew God, that once stood upon the foundation of the covenant, cannot forsake that foundation and expect to stand. A civilization that once called upon the name of the Lord cannot mock his name and expect to remain unshaken. The signs of the times are upon us. The ancient markers reappear. The same patterns that preceded the fall of kingdoms now unfold once more across the nations of the earth. The same defiance, the same pride, the same rejection of the sacred, the same exaltation of man above God. As it was in the days of Noah, as it was in the days of Sodom, so it is in these days. But those who know the secret, those who walk in the covenant, will not be caught unaware. They will see the signs for what they are. They will hear the sound of the approaching footsteps. They will know that the time is short and the call is urgent. For the secret not only shaped what was, but declares what is to come. The covenant not only determined the past, but will determine the future. The kingdoms of this world will become the kingdoms of our God. Every power that has exalted itself will fall. Every throne set up against the throne of heaven will be cast down. Every knee will bow and every tongue confess. The ancient covenant will be fulfilled in all its glory. And the promise made to Abraham will find its ultimate consummation. The blessing will cover the earth as the waters cover the sea. The restoration will come. The king will reign, and those who have aligned their lives with the covenant will reign with him. The call now is the same as it was from the beginning. Return, repent, consecrate your life, align your steps with the word that does not change, set your heart on the purposes of heaven, forsake the idols of the world, the fleeting glories of man, the false securities of kingdoms that are destined to fall. Build your life not on the sands of this age, but on the rock of the everlasting covenant. For only what is built on the foundation of the covenant will endure the shaking that is to come. You were born for such a time as this. You were placed here not by accident, but by divine appointment. You have a part in the unfolding of the mystery. Your life matters. Your faith matters. Your stand matters. In the midst of the shaking, you are called to stand firm, to shine with the light of the covenant, to proclaim the ancient truth to a world that has forgotten. You are called to be a voice crying out in the wilderness, preparing the way of the Lord, making straight the paths for his coming. The days grow darker, but the light of the covenant shines brighter. The kingdoms of man falter, but the kingdom of God advances. The promises given will not fail. The purposes spoken will not be overturned. The destiny that shaped world history is moving to its final consummation, and the ancient secret, the covenant sworn by the eternal, the mystery hidden before the foundation of the world, will be revealed in full